Hello my loves, Toni here and welcome back. And as you can see, we have a very special guest today. I finally got my mom on one of my videos. It's only taken, what, 6 years?
Probably.
Well, welcome, Mom. So, Mom is here to talk trash with me. Specifically, we are digging into some knit and crochet hot takes, unpopular opinions. I'm feeling a little bit messy, so I'm like, you know what, let's talk about it. I thought Mom was going to be the perfect addition to this because Mama is from Brooklyn.
The hood.
The hood.
I'm the hood.
And Mom has a lot of opinions about knit and crochet.
Everything.
So I asked all of my friends from around the internet to submit their best hot takes, so we're going to react to those today.
I'm ready.
You ready?
I'm ready.
She more than ready. Listen, we be having these kinds of conversations all the time. We just finally turned the camera on for one of them. So if you are excited to join us with a few knit and crochet hot takes, make sure you like this video and give it a wait. If you're excited oh my gosh. If you're excited to watch these hot takes with us, make sure you like this video and consider subscribing to my channel. And before we start talking trash about knit and crochet, we have to give some love to our Cup of Caffeine sponsor. I have had my coffee for today, so I'm all done. Mom's sipping on it for the both of us. So today's Cup of Caffeine is brought to you by our friend Sherry. And when donating, Sherry said, "I'm new to crochet and learning so much. I love your channel, you're a fabulous teacher, and your videos are so helpful and engaging." Listen, Sherry, compliment me all day and night. It is the way to my heart, so thank you so much. I'm glad that my videos have been helpful, and I hope they continue to be. Thanks so much for the support. And thank you so much for watching. If you like my videos and want to support my channel, buy me a coffee. Who knows, I might shout you out in the next one. Mama, what you working on?
I am working on I call it my never-ending sock. I make just tube socks, and they're mindless.
Easy peasy. I love it. So I am working on the 2 of Wands Autumn Leaf Pullover. So this is one of my for fun projects. I finally split for the sleeves. It took me forever to overcome my fear. And I tried it on yesterday and it fits. It actually fits really nice. That's
one nice thing about the top-down knitting. You can try it on as you go if you need to split or if you need to add a few more inches or whatever you need to do.
Yeah, I'm just really glad it fit because if it didn't, I would have just thrown it away.
No, she wouldn't. I
was like, this thing better fit.
I will come and pick it out the trash.
Ain't enough YouTube videos that could teach me how to fix knitting. Listen, and I know y'all like, oh, it's so easy. I don't want to learn. I just want it to be right the first time. Like, I'm not going to fix it.
We are not going there. We are not going to go there. I will dig. I'll be like, what is this?
Spoken like a true crocheter. Like, if I can't easily frog my project, I ain't going to do it. Hot take. We're going to jump in here because we've actually got a lot to cover. I have 3 pages of hot takes.
Ooh.
Of course, if you've got hot takes on anything that we talk about today or anything that we don't talk about, you know what to do. Drop down into those comments and give us the hot goss. Like, we need it.
We need it all.
We're gonna do like a little softball, a little easy one to get it started. So this one says, the number of years that you crocheted or knit does not automatically make you better than someone with less years. Okay, so I get the spirit of this hot take. Like,
it's
just
adorable.
Just because objectively speaking, you knit for longer than somebody else doesn't automatically make you better.
No.
But experience counts for something.
Oh yeah.
Like you have to be practicing, you know, to get better. That's what ends up making the difference.
Yes, I've been knitting and crocheting for 48 years. You may do your technical things, you may write patterns, you may whatever it is that you do, but I guarantee you, I may know a tad bit more than you. And I've had to figure it out with this and this. You get your kudos, you get your roses and your flowers because at the end of the day, you still doing it.
I'll say this, like there's a lot of resources out there to learn how to do things. Like you don't have to be knitting or crocheting for a long time to complete a garment or, you know, to wing a project or whatever. But I think we do have to give some love to people who have done a lot of it by trial and error.
Yes.
Who have been at it for a while and they've developed their skills from messing up and fixing it. Because that's one of the ways that you actually learn. When I was splitting for the sleeves on this, I learned it as I was watching it, but I couldn't sit here and explain it to somebody. If you handed me another sweater, I couldn't split for the sleeves without pulling up that video again. While it doesn't objectively make you a better knitter or crocheter, you're definitely further along.
My way is the best way. Your way is the best way for you. When I learned how to knit and crochet at the age of 10, and that's a long time ago.
Ain't that long?
Girl, there was nobody there to teach me. Once my aunt taught me how to knit one day and crochet the other day, that was it. Everything else I had to learn, just winging it. And that's okay too, because we didn't have the lovely things that you guys have now.
And as long as you're making the thing, then you good.
Yeah.
This one says, using a center pull is superior to working with the end on the outside of the skein. Facts, 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 facts. Listen, I've always been a center pull girly. It's easier to control the yarn. And yes, at the end, you might end up with some knots. You know, the skein collapses. But that's like in the last 5% of the skein. The whole other 95% of the skein is way easier to work with. I'm not chasing around skeins of yarn. I don't have to worry about the cat chasing around skeins of yarn. Like, everything is where it's supposed to be. Center pull is superior, hands down. Yes.
Having knit with silk, linen, bamboo, those fibers are easier to work from the outside.
Because they're so slippery.
Because they're so slippery. And especially when you're knitting. I would say knitting and crocheting, because I've knit and crochet both of them. I like to work slicker, silkier, less pliable, raffia, things like that. I like to work those from the outside, but everything else I will work from the inside, as I'm doing right now.
Well, I guess it's pretty obvious what kind of fibers I use because it's center pull for me all day. Okay, this is a long one.
I'm ready.
I think there's multiple parts to this. Snobbery has increased and skills have decreased. She's getting spicy.
Fire.
Yarn snobs put too much of an emphasis on quality 100% natural yarns and how they make good projects, and not on actual garment construction and techniques like seaming, bust shaping, neck shaping. And that's why they have poorly fit garments in fancy yarns.
That is true.
Somebody's granny in the 1980s who only used acrylic, who actually did body shaping and seams, would literally outrun all these sloppy, shapeless, 100% wool sweaters that these yarn snobs somehow keep boasting about. Well, I'm going to shut my mouth because I've only been doing this for a little while. I'm going to let you take this one.
I don't knock any project. But if you're out here running your mouth, I'm coming to see what you're working with.
Yeah, this is my issue.
Give it to me.
My issue is when people cry about, oh, I have so much trouble making garments, or oh, I can't do that, oh, I can't do this. We all learned somewhere. And a lot of us, like you were talking about, learned from trial and error. We learned by making our first sweater and ruining it. Right? We learned by all the, like, I have a mistake in this sweater. There's like this long stitch that's sitting right above my boob. I don't know if it's going to be fixed and blocking or not. But now I know not to do that again.
And if it's not fixed, don't worry, I know how to fix it.
Exactly. So it's like, you know, there's lots of ways to improve your skills. And you don't have to be interested in making complicated projects to want to get better. Like, if you want to get better at shaping things around your bust, or how do I do different types of sleeves? How do I do different types of necklines? What fiber is better for this particular thing? There are so many resources out there. And even though your fave might not have a video on that one thing, somebody does.
Somebody does. Go and
open
find
a book,
it.
Find a magazine, go to the library, go to the local yarn store, ask somebody, join a knit group, something. Somebody has the answers for you. And I think there has to be a little bit more accountability on the maker to find the answers to their questions.
And be willing to listen to everyone. One of the reasons we're in some of the situations we're in as a world, not just a country or a city or a state, is because we don't pay attention to other people. Sometimes you learn what to do, and sometimes you learn what not to do. But you will always learn something.
You're going to learn something. And I think personally that's the difference between like an okay crocheter and a great crocheter. It's like always just being open to learn. Even if it's not something you're going to use in every project, at least you know how to do it. So if you want to change something, or if you notice a mistake, you know how to fix it. Folks be driving me crazy. Yes, there is a good amount of snobbery. I do think that there are people out there who know more technically than others and use that information to kind of create an us-them thing. But instead, you know, let's look for ways to share the knowledge, because that's the only way these crafts stick around.
If things were separate when everybody was learning and when we were coming up, then I would have never been taught. And you would never have been taught because it would have died out like so many other crafts that you don't have access to.
You're so right. Kind of along the same vein. Those who tell people the way they do things is wrong are taking the fun out of the hobby. I keep seeing it happen and it saddens me. I think you're right. You're absolutely right. I'm sure there's somebody who's already planning to go down in the comments and tell me that I should be knitting continental. I ain't gonna do it. This is easier for me and it's more fun. The way that I do it is right for me. The way you do it is right for you. There is some right and wrong in this craft. There's some.
Yeah,
like
twisting stitches if you're knitting. I'm still left-handed, so when I teach people, I have to make sure that if they're right-handed, then they sit on the side of me. But if they're left-handed, they sit in front of me because it's actually opposite. It's mirror image.
There's not a whole lot of right and wrong here. No. The adjustments that we make are like for our health, to make sure our hands don't hurt, or for the sheer enjoyment of it. Like I learned, I know you taught me continental when I was learning knitting, and I tried it out, and I just have a lot of issues with it. It makes my tension too tight. I don't know how to hold the yarn. It's a whole thing. Right. But when I do it English style, I just be zooming. Yeah. I love it. And it's easy peasy. I like it that way. Those knitters get so hung up on that. Yeah. I don't understand it.
And it's faster for you. Right. As you can see, I can do this without looking because I've been doing it for so long. But there are some people who just don't have access to the things that you do, and you have to be mindful of when you're speaking to them because it's offensive.
It is. And in a lot of ways, every single one of us is an ambassador for this craft. Yes. Like we, especially when you're talking to somebody who doesn't do this already, you kind of speak for all of us. Yes. So if you've got a nasty attitude, or you're talking about how you can't use this kind of yarn, or you shouldn't use this stuff or whatever, you're planting a seed in somebody's head about what this community is like. So I think we all need to be a little bit more mindful of that, because I'm sure there are people who are like, yeah, I would have liked to learn how to crochet, but I went into a yarn store and I had a bad experience, or I heard from somebody that I wouldn't be able to learn how to do this, or whatever. Like just not a welcoming first impression. Yes. And we're all responsible for that. Yes. We really are. Yeah. So this was one that came up several times. I just pulled the one because it kind of represented all of them. So it says, as a queer person, the term bistitchual leaves a bitter taste in my mouth, especially since it's usually used by the same people who use sex work craft innuendos. So like, I'm a naughty hooker, or I like balls, or whatever. Personally, it's just real corny to me. It's just real corny to me. I'm like, look, there are so many well done puns in the knit and craft community that if you're gonna lean on ones that like make fun of queer people, dig deeper, find something else. Yeah. While we're on the same topic of community, there are lots of different people who do what we do. Yes. There are people of different ethnicities, people of different sexual orientations, people of different abilities. Yes. Like there's so much diversity in crafts. It's wild. And like there's a whole crop of people who came up in the pandemic era, and I feel like they get ostracized sometimes. Oh, yeah. So
because they haven't been doing it as long. Yeah. Or don't get so caught up on the wording. Yeah. I think the wording is what's so offensive. Well, if you're bistitchual, then I'm tri-stitchual. Whatever. Yeah. I mean, you know, I mean, come on.
You hear it a lot.
Yeah. Think about it before you open your mouth.
Just like anything that you say. Like think about it first. And I get you're trying to be like punny, you're trying to be cute. Like I get where it comes from. Right. And as a cis heterosexual woman, like it doesn't bother me. No. But I don't have to worry about being offended here. If somebody who I care about in the space is offended by it, maybe you could just say something else.
So just use another word.
Just say something else.
Or don't say it at all.
Don't say it.
It's a made up word.
It is. You can just not use it.
Yep.
You can just do that. That's fine. I think that's fine.
All we need.
And also, like, can we just give a lot of big ups to the queer contribution to the knit and crochet space?
Oh my goodness. There's so many
designers,
everybody.
makers.
Let's just be here and make this a safe place.
Yeah, let's appreciate how much we all bring to this space as opposed to just trying to draw lines all the time. Yeah. Let's cut it out.
No lines in the sand.
No lines in the sand. We don't do that. Not a fan.
It's time to hydrate.
Hydrate. Yes. Hydrate. Cheers, girl. This tea's spicy today.
Yes. All the tea.
Okay, here's a good one. A little controversial.
I'm ready.
Lace is more trouble than it's pepperoni. You got ideas on lace? You got something you want to say about it?
What? What you got?
So the hot take is that lace is more trouble than it's worth. And that is just simply untrue.
Untrue.
All respect, sweetheart, but you couldn't be more wrong.
Wrong.
There is a time and a place for lace.
Yes.
100%. Those gorgeous like cotton dresses that they be making in the summertime. Classic shawls. Like back when people used to make things with lace weight yarn and take their time, that was the way we showed off.
Yes.
That's the way that we said, look at these amazing skills that I have. Yes. Look at this downtime that I have to make this very pretty thing. I'm not distracted by social media and TV and running around.
Lace gives you air and room to breathe in your garment. And when you get to be a woman of a certain age, you need a little bit more air in your clothes.
It don't hurt. Need a little breeze, a little ventilation.
How the song go? Just breathe, because honey, let me tell you, it get hot, baby.
It get hot. There's a place for lace even in modern knitwear.
Oh yeah.
I think there's an opportunity to really adorn a piece by like making a lovely top and then doing like a lace cap sleeve
or a collar, or you know, the trim on your sleeve, or just a trim on your button band. I think what lace shows is that you took a little extra thought.
100%. I feel the same way about cables. There was a time when I definitely felt like cables were more trouble than they were worth. I still have my gripes with crochet cables. That's why I don't use them much. But even knit cables, I think they're super pretty. Yes. And yes, they take more time. Yes. Yeah, there's a lot of techniques and stuff involved, but I think it's totally worth it. Once it's done, all the time that you put into it feels worth it. And that's all it takes for me.
If you don't do it, it's okay. But if you do it, and it's still okay.
It's still okay. I think that's one of the nice things about this craft. Like, you can make things as complicated or as uncomplicated as you want. You could do lace, you could do cables, you could do mosaic, you could do color work, you could do a million different things. You could do garments, you could do amigurumi, you could do accessories, you could do home stuff.
Yes, there are some people who just do socks, and they don't make anything else but socks, and that's okay.
Yeah, but let's be clear, lace is amazing.
Amazing.
I don't think it's something you need to be doing all the time, unless that's your thing.
Unless it's your thing.
But there is a place for it. 100% there's a place for it.
There's a place for lace.
There's a place for lace. Thank you. I like that. Pep. You done? Come here. Right here. Relax.
You need love. Pepper brain.
There you go. Sorry, Pepper. I'm sorry. I haven't pet you in like 5 minutes. That's my bad. This section of hot takes is about buying yarn and stashing. So I'll read them both. I'll read. There were a couple notes here. I know. Find your zen, mommy, because I feel like they were coming for you especially. This hot take says, stop buying yarn. Yes, it's pretty. Yes, it feels nice, but never buy yarn until you're done with the yarn you have. Don't be a consumer, but rather a producer. Buy yarn only when you have a specific project in mind, work it out, finish it, then buy new yarn. My question is, who you talking to?
Who you talking to? First of all, it sounds like you coming for me. I think you coming for women.
Now, there is something to be said about consciously building a stash.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with having a stash. I have one.
I definitely have one.
Yeah. I mean, Mom could open a yarn store in her basement.
100%.
We've talked about this before. A stash serves several purposes. Yeah. And it depends on what kind of maker you are. Yes. But for me, my stash is my inspiration. Looking at the yarn that I have, remembering where I got it, finding different colors that go well together, finding opportunities to like honor and appreciate the people that I bought that yarn for, or where it was gifted from. Right. Like, there's a lot that my yarn means to me besides just taking up space in a closet. And it's definitely not like a clout thing, like, oh, I've got a giant stash. No. So that just proves how good of a crocheter I am.
Some people go on vacation and they'll buy mugs, go on a really expensive excursion while they're on their trip. That's what you like to do. I, on the other hand, can tell you where I got the yarn, who gave it to me, how it made me feel when I received it. And I've even gone so far as to have the creator of the yarn sign the ball band for me and put the date on it. So that way I know that this person who spun this yarn just did it with love.
Absolutely. And
that's a whole different kind of gift. It's not just about collecting.
My thing with building a stash and like the hoarding thing around yarn is if you have the space to store it, if you have the practices and the ritual to make sure that yarn is not like getting eaten by bugs or getting moldy or stinky. Like, if you have the ability to take care of your stash, to mind your stash, then there's no issue with having one.
No.
I think it is also very healthy to purge your stash every now and then. So like you said, gifting yarn out, selling it, giving it to, different craft groups or whatever, or obviously putting it into projects is super important. Yes. If you're buying yarn and not using it, that's certainly a problem. Yeah. But if you're using your stash, if it's an active, well cared for stash, you have as much yarn as you want to. Once it gets to the point where your stash is like overtaking your house, especially if you live with other people, like if you don't have a designated place for the yarn, then maybe you need to be considering like how big your stash actually needs to be.
Because you have to consider the other person.
Now I do give a lot of respect to the people who don't keep a stash though. I think that is a special kind of skill.
And a special kind of, I don't want to say control. Everybody has control unless you're...
some people don't. Let's be honest, some people ain't got no control. Okay. I've definitely walked into a yarn store before for one thing and came out with like 50 things I didn't need. Some of us don't have the control. Sorry, Pablo.
Okay, but me too.
I think
I've done that before.
Some self-restraint, certainly, to be like, I'm only going to buy yarn for this particular project. I'm going to work on this one project and then I'm going to go get more yarn. I think that's a beautiful amount of self-control. Yes. If that's something that you value
want to do, exactly. If that's important to you, then you should do it that way.
But if your stash is under control, honey,
I don't let people tell me, oh, turn your hangers around this way, and if you haven't worn it, then don't.
If that's something that you feel you need to do, sure. But like, that's not how I live my whole life. If I need to purge my closet, sure. Yeah. But then after that, I'm gonna just live with it.
What?
I'm gonna live with it. Oof, girl.
That's a big one.
Listen, they brought it. They brought it today. Okay, so let's get into some knit versus crochet stuff.
Oh gosh.
I'm gonna just go to the one that like I heard over and over and over again. Like, people not even kidding. Crochet is more fun, but the finished results of knitting look better. Not true. Simply not true. Where are y'all getting this stuff from?
Who told you that?
Who told you that?
That's always my thing. Who told you that?
We have been trained as a society to appreciate the look of knit fabric. It's used commercially. Even the sweater I have on right now, I got this from Target. Yeah. We love the look of it because we've seen pieces like this in our stores and on our bodies for decades. Crochet is not commercially produced. So I think even the look of crochet in a retail setting is like, where'd that come from? Oh my God. That's why it's a trend. Knitwear has been a trend in fashion for a very long time.
Because everything you have on is knit. This sweater is knit. These pants are knit. That top is knit. Her pants are knit.
Everything's knit.
Everything. A lot of pieces that look like they're crocheted are not crocheted. Yeah. They are knit pieces that are manipulated on knitting machines and then sewed down to look like crochet.
Since we are conditioned to like the look of knit fabric, I think knit fabric will always be superior retail wise to crochet.
It'll seem that way, but to me,
to actual makers, no. I think both of these crafts have their benefits, and I think that it is incredibly important to at least have the skill to do both, to appreciate both and understand the differences between them.
I think to be able to appreciate both.
Right. Yeah.
I think because there are some knitters who will say, I will never crochet. I don't like the way that looks. And then there are some crocheters who I don't like the way that looks. That looks like everything else that everybody makes. The average person doesn't know the difference between knitting and crocheting.
They don't. It's all knitting to them.
It's all knitting. We need to read books.
Yes.
I love Google.
Just open a book.
I love Google.
Open a magazine.
Please don't get me wrong.
YouTube's great. It's a nice place to get like a quick little bite, to learn a little tip. Yes. But if you're really trying to build your skills, you need to go to a library, get some of those like vintage knit and crochet books. Like, that's how people actually learned these skills, and that's how you retained it and had the ability to practice it.
Besides it being handed down from person to person, that's a different type of knowledge to be able to understand it without seeing it written. Right. And that's how I learned. I just can appreciate both. Yeah. I think
there's a lot more to be gained by appreciating both. Yes. 100%.
There we go.
Oh, here's a good one. Also in the knit versus crochet camp. Crocheters are more open to learning knitting than vice versa. I can say firsthand that is absolutely true. I teach a lot. We go around, you and I.
Yeah.
Because she tried to act all coy because we got classes coming up soon. This has been my experience. I can always tell in my regular crochet and Tunisian crochet classes who is coming from a knitting background, because I feel like they come in with this mentality of like, oh, this is going to be so difficult and crochet is so hard and like knitting is so easy. There's no way I'm going to get this. It'll be a miracle if I walk out of this learning a stitch. And I'm like, listen, honey, your attitude is going to impact anything that you do.
Yeah.
If you walk in the room saying that you can't, it's very likely you're not going to be able to.
Right.
Crocheters stay open to learning not only knitting, but lots of other crafts. Yes, I put off learning knitting for a long time, but now that I have sorted it out and I've, you know, stayed open to it and I'm picking bigger and more complicated projects, I'm like, oh, this is kind of fun. Just learning something different. Knitters don't walk into a space with that kind of mentality of like, oh, it'll be nice to add this skill to my abilities.
And because I knit and crochet, I can always tell when I'm working with someone who's having an adverse effect to learning crochet, because they'll be like, and pulling at it, and I'm like, you knit. And they're like, yes, I'm gonna need you to relax.
Yeah.
That's what I need you to do. Just know
relax
that.
Your jaw.
Right.
Drop your shoulders. Loosen up your hands. Like,
get that neck,
come
on.
On.
Back. Oh my goodness, they come in so tight and real.
Tense. There's a lot less distance between these two crafts than I think people give them credit for.
Yes.
And I do think we would all be better for keeping an open mind to like hearing each other out. And I get having a preference. Like, I prefer crochet all day. This is a fun little project, but I got like 4 crochet whips upstairs. And I'm like, as soon as I put this down, I'm gonna go get my hooks again. And there's no problem with having a preference, having this out and out mentality of like knitting is better than crochet. Also corny.
Yeah.
Like, let's get past that.
It's like you're trying to make it. When the sun is out, when it's about to get warm,
the crochet hooks is out,
I'm not gonna lie to you, honey. I'm gonna throw on that crochet. I'm pulling out that thin yarn long before most people were. I was doing it, and not for doilies. I was doing it for clothes. I love a lace weight yarn. I will pull out some thread and start making a dress in a heartbeat. While I'm sitting there talking to you, I'll do it.
Let's talk about managing ends. Because there was a lot of conversation around this. There were 2 kind of opposing conversations that were being had here. So one was, you don't always have to weave in your ends. You can crochet your ends as you go, hide them in borders of fabric, turn them into tassels. It depends on the project. And then the other one is crocheting over your ends is not the same as weaving them in. So I am somebody who prefers to actually weave in my ends. Because I have a process to it. I like to go up and down this way and back and forth that way. And I'm going around in circles because I want to make sure those ends are secure. I hear all the time when I'm working on a project, I'll post a photo of it. Oh my gosh, I couldn't with all those ends. Ain't no way to work those in as you go, blah, blah, blah. Like, there are people who will avoid certain projects if there are too many ends to work in. And I don't know, y'all, but that is preposterous to me. Because then, like, how are you doing like color work with your projects? How are you making sure your tails are secure? Like, weaving your end in just one direction, you're taking a gamble. It's a little bit of a risk, and I'm a little risk averse.
It is a risque proposition. But I am a crochet over those puppy dogs. I get my fabric glue out when I'm done. I turn that piece inside out, and I get my clear glue, and I peep. If I'm just doing some stripes or something like that, no, we're going straight over that.
Well, here's my 2 cents. If you are gonna live on the edge and weave your ends in as you go, just make sure you leave a long tail. I don't know who's out here telling these knit and crochet babies that you can weave in a 3-inch tail. Honey, no. Leave that thing like 6-7 inches. Weave it all the way in.
And then cut and do whatever you say. I'm still down. I'm still team glue.
Yeah, do something. Because if that end works its way out, you want to have enough yarn left over to work it back in.
I'm gonna say this. Okay. If you spent 10 hours, 12 hours, 15 hours crocheting a dress, and you're outside, that one little piece of yarn that had an attitude with you because it wanted to be used a little bit more and you didn't, it's coming to play.
It is.
It's sticking out like this.
You won't even see it because it's gonna be, or it's gonna be like right on your butt or something.
or your hip.
Right.
You can't hide it.
Yeah. I am team finishing. I am team blocking. I am team weaving in your ends. I am team seaming, all of it. It's those extra steps that take it from done to finished. It adds that little bit of polish. And if you spend all this time working on a project anyway, spend a little bit more time making sure that everything is secure, and that piece is going to look the same way 5 years from now. Just put in the time. That's the way I feel about it. But I know some of y'all is just, let's call it what it is. Some of y'all a little bit lazy. And that's
let me tell y'all something. I will knit this sock, find the other one because I don't know where it is. I will take that steamer and put that sock on it. Yup, it's falling down, but that's my sock. It's a scrunchy sock, and I'm about my business. If I'm making something for somebody, if I'm creating a pattern, if I'm giving it away, I'm probably gonna spend that extra time, because I've easily had people say, did you make that or did you buy that? Now
that's the difference.
That's the difference.
Because if you can see the ends, you made it.
You made it.
Now you know for sure.
And they're gonna assume, even if you didn't, they're gonna assume that you did.
Exactly.
So
this is fun.
Yes.
So let's bash granny squares for a little while. This one says, I don't get the allure of granny squares. I know people really like them, but I hate making them. I don't want to change colors. You have to make massive stacks for projects, and joining them together takes forever. This one just says, granny squares, enough is enough. I'm laughing because, like, granny squares are half of my entire business. Like, I'm obsessed with granny squares. They are very classic, and they are the motif of crochet. Yeah. They're super versatile. Yes. I love them.
That's how I taught her
yes, that's how I learned.
Crochet.
So it's always going to hold a special place in my heart.
Just like lace, or knitting, or crocheting, or Tunisian crochet, or weaving, or embroidery, or hairpin lace, or broomstick lace, or whatever it is, spinning, right? Or spinning, or some people will take from sheep to project. I think whatever it is that you like to do, it's okay. And if you're over it, so that's
don't
your
be mad that you keep seeing it,
right? Because it's not going to go away.
It's not going anywhere.
Actually, it's really beautiful.
It is.
It's extremely creative.
But I'm gonna just be straight up though. You wrong. You wrong, you wrong, you wrong. Granny squares are fabulous and fantastic and gorgeous, and they're easy for beginners to learn, and they're super versatile, and you can, like, if you can learn a granny stitch, it can really springboard you into a lot of other things with crochet. Now, I will say this though. You connecting a bunch of granny squares does not make you a pattern designer.
Please don't.
Let's be clear.
Please don't.
Granny squares are so classic and have been around for so long.
You making a granny square cardigan, a skirt.
It takes a lot to be unique in the area of granny squares. Yes. It takes a lot. So, like, don't jump out the window and be like, this is a unique design. Because it's probably not.
Right.
Granny squares will never die.
No.
And if you hang around here long enough, you better get used to it. They ain't going nowhere. Let's talk a little bit about pattern writing issues. There are some major gripes here. I've come across some really bad patterns, and everybody's pattern writing style is different. This one says, there should be an accredited class taken before anyone should be allowed to write patterns.
Not everybody can afford it. If it's free, you have to remember, in this space, there are different financial levels. You assume that everybody can have Amazon delivered, or can walk down to Joann's, or has a LYS. You saying that you should be accredited, there should be an accreditation. That is a very, what is the word I'm looking for? Elitist comment.
I get the spirit of it. I get where it comes from, because there does need to be some more standards around how patterns are written. Yeah. So I get what you're saying. Like, let's get on the same page about how we write patterns. Right. Now, as somebody who's been writing patterns for a long time, I know my style has changed, but one of the things that makes pattern writing a little bit more uniform is having a style guide. And if you don't know what that is, or you've never made one, you probably should not be writing patterns. There needs to be some consistency even within your personal library of patterns. There needs to be consistency. So even if somebody only ever made TL Yarn Crafts patterns, you can work one from when I first started to the one that I wrote yesterday.
That is also a growing.
It's something you mature into.
Yeah, you mature into it. It's growing.
And it takes practice.
And that's where that time comes in.
Yeah.
Then you'll get that young person who's just coming in. Maybe they've only read 3 or 4, but their style is so fire.
Yeah.
I don't care that they're illiterate in their writing skills. I just want to make what they made.
I disagree. I disagree. I love the energy and the fire and like that really unique perspective that a lot of these new makers have.
That's what I'm saying.
No, let me get it out.
Okay, go ahead.
I love that. I love that you have that. I think that is necessary to become a designer.
Okay.
But there is also a technical aspect to it that you need to have. The best designers, regardless of industry, have it. You have to blend the art with the science. And the science part of crochet design is that technical writing piece. Because you're not just saying, hey, look at this amazing thing I made. Because if so, you'd put that up in a gallery and we all just go look at it. Yes. You're saying, hey, look at this amazing thing I made. You can make it too. Yeah. Here's exactly how. Yeah. And translating your internal language to someone else is not easy. And it's not something that you can pick up just by having worked off of 2 or 3 patterns yourself.
I 100% agree with that.
There's skill to it.
That is one of the reasons that I don't always write patterns, because I just want to make it.
Just want to make the thing.
And I just want to wear it. And I want you to look at it and I want you to admire it and tell me how pretty I look and tell me how great it is. And then I want to be able to go home and
make something else.
And I'm going to tell you something. I've made those things. You've loved those things and you've never seen them again. I will gift it and I will make something else.
Yeah.
Because I have that many ideas in my head.
Having the fire, the interest, the talent, the unique perspective is where it starts.
Yes.
And then you build those other skills. Because you can learn to write a pattern. Yes. That is not the barrier to entry. I think the barrier to entry is and should be having a unique perspective on design. Yes. And if you just saw something, you're like, I could mimic that and call it a design. Sorry, dear, that is not designing. That is making. Yes. And low-key stealing. And like if you decide to sell that pattern.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's call it what it is.
Wherever you are is where you are until you're someplace else.
Absolutely.
Just be able to admit that to yourself.
Just admit it to yourself, right? Like even if you do have that unique perspective, you have that fire, maybe you don't write your first pattern for like a few years. You know, maybe you work off of other patterns and you start to absorb some of the things that you then morph into your own style. Yeah. So I don't recommend like just throwing a pattern out there. That's kind of learning the hard way. Yeah. Take your time, build some skills, get your patterns tech edited, potentially tested, and
ask a million questions. Yes. If you see somebody, if you know somebody, you know, can I pick your brain? Can I buy you some coffee?
Can I run this by you real quick?
Can I run this by you? Whatever it is that you need to do to make sure that you're prepared to be able to do what it is that you want to do.
Exactly. So yarn fibers. There's a lot of conversation there. I'm going to read off a few of these hot takes and then we'll kind of take them as a group.
Okay.
Acrylic yarn is gross and has no place in my life. If I can't afford to spend much on yarn, I would rather make a small project with nice yarn than a larger project with crummy yarn. Shaming acrylic yarn users needs to stop. Mohair is really annoying and not worth it. Bougie yarn is overrated. And people who lament acrylic yarn need to get off their high horse. So let's start with acrylic.
Okay.
Like we've said multiple times, there is a time and a place for everything.
Everything.
And I think acrylic yarn has made leaps and bounds in how it's produced, the colors that are available, the textures you can achieve, the weights that are available. People do need to understand that acrylic yarn comes in weights other than worsted. Yes. Like you can use it for lots of different things and it's available, and maybe that's not the weight that you can get at Joann, but like there's different places to shop for yarn than Joann.
Yes.
I could go on and on about this topic, I tell you, because I think people get really hung up on fibers and stick to one camp, whether it's natural fibers, plant fibers, acrylic fibers, whatever. But I'm like, Having a well-rounded understanding of fiber
Yes.
gives you an appreciation. You can use acrylic for certain things and not others. It's definitely long wearing, lots of colors,
Yes.
typically pretty reasonably priced.
Yes.
Really low barrier to entry for beginners. If you're on a budget, like it's some of the best stuff that you can use.
Also, if you're teaching or you're learning.
Mm-hmm.
And now, you know, the prices, I've seen the prices of yarn change.
So
when
much.
I first bought my first ball of what I would consider expensive yarn, I got 600 yards of sock weight yarn, and it was $32.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that was a lot of money.
For sure. It is a lot of money.
Right.
It still is.
What I'm saying though, but
Yeah.
now, looking online yesterday, I saw 246 yards of DK for $30. Yeah, I love you with the
Was
love
it hand
of
dyed?
the Lord. Yes. I'm not spending $30 on no DK amount of yarn for 246 yards for $30. But I love you.
The inflation in craft is really starting to get out of hand. I definitely think there's a threshold of like, now you're just kind of being greedy. Let me be clear. I don't dye yarn.
Nope.
I don't source it
Nope.
and all of that stuff. But I feel like there's a bar that has been raised. Whereas the yarn used to be $25, maybe $26. It's now like $29 on the low end.
Right.
You're talking $30, $32,
Everything.
$34 for a skein of yarn.
What yarn is worth? DK yarn. I've seen DK yarn. I've seen mohair yarn. $42, $49, $50, $52. And this point, I will knit my stash.
Exactly.
Before you roll me for $50 for some mohair yarn.
Yeah, that's wild. Now, speaking of mohair, I don't think mohair is overrated. I don't think, I think mohair is 100% worth it. But I do believe mohair could stand to be used less. There are projects that people are putting mohair in where it don't need to be. It don't need to be. Don't put mohair in baby things. Please. That stuff goes up their little noses. Just don't.
It's not good for them.
Not even the hat. No. Don't do it. And you
don't
know how
especially their
skin's
socks and
be.
They put their little hands and feet. They put their clothes. They chew on that stuff, and it's just not.
And
good.
Every sweater you make does not need to have mohair in it. Now, there's definitely benefits. I've recently learned that adding mohair to a project helps with pilling, which is nice. It gives it this gorgeous halo. Like I personally am a big fan of mohair.
Yeah, I love it.
But it should be used sparingly. I think it's one of those fibers that you add to something to make it extra special, but everything don't need to be extra special.
Can I just give a little gripe real quick?
Yes, please. Give me a gripe.
Y'all ready? I'm about to give you a gripe. I've been around for a minute, and I've seen a lot of yarn come, and I've seen it go. I've seen a lot of colors. But you yarn companies out there, this is what I'm going to need you to start and not do. I'm going to need you to at least give me 10 years before you sell that yarn to somebody else and they rename that yarn and sell me the same exact color and charge me $10 more because it's a different company and you put a different ball band on it.
We do see that a lot.
Because I have that stash. I see you.
Yeah.
I'm going to start calling you out. You're going to make me start doing videos.
I was surprised to see so few hot takes about companies in this space.
Yes.
I saw a lot of hot takes about like how we interact with each other, knit versus crochet, blah, blah, blah. But like, when are we going to talk about how expensive yarn is getting? When are we going to talk about how difficult it is to find certain products? When are we going to talk about how hard it is to source certain things, how certain things are sold in the store and certain things you can only find online? One of my biggest issues is you've got these boutique websites that are selling a product that if I saw this in a store, it'd be half the price.
A third of the price.
But because of your great marketing and your lovely photos and your cutting edge technologies.
And we don't diminish any of the things that you are doing.
Listen, if it's not making the product better, it's just improving the brand. That is no reason to raise the price of it.
No.
Just because you spend more money on your photo shoots doesn't mean that automatically your product is more valuable or you should be able to
pattern is worth $17 to $20. I love you, but honey.
And honestly, and I'm gonna just throw this out there, if you're having trouble selling patterns, instead of raising your prices all the time, try lowering them. and see what happens. Maybe make them more reasonably priced, closer to how they should actually be, and you might get more eyes on your stuff. Because when I see a crochet pattern for $12, $14, $15, first off, it better be sized from the smallest person ever to the largest person ever. It better come with lots of variations, and you must have shown it on a lot of different models, and you really must have put a whole lot into this.
And don't let somebody like me look at it, because I quite frankly don't, man, I ain't trying to be funny. I don't need your pattern anyway. I'm buying it because I like you, not because I need it. Trust me, honey, I can
support
figure
the designers.
It out. I'm supporting you with my 430 something patterns that I have on Ravelry, that half of them I've bought because I'm supporting you. I got that I don't need it.
Let's just start being a little bit more honest. I do think there's sometimes around the business side of this, I feel like some of the greed has started to infiltrate the craft space. And we're so kind. And there have been so many small businesses created, especially since the pandemic, because we all developed the skill and we're like, now I'm going to sell this stuff. It's starting to be a little much, to the point where it's hard to find the people that have the talent, that have improved their technical skills. Like, it's hard to make enough noise in this space where everybody's yelling. You don't necessarily need to exist here, even long term. Maybe you release a pattern or two a year. So I think that's my 2 cents on it. As somebody who's been around for a long time, and thankfully I've kind of created my niche. I found my folks. A few new ones coming. Hey, how you doing? My new babies coming through. Like, you got to be ready to commit to this, because it's only getting way more competitive. Not to say that there's not space for you. I think if you've got that unique perspective, there's absolutely space. There's a lot of grind that goes into it, and there's a lot of consideration to how much you charge for things, how you respond to your customers, the companies that you work with, the types of designs you come out with. You got to have that business savvy as well. All right, Mama. So I actually think this is kind of the perfect place to wrap this up. We've covered a lot of these hot takes. One thing that I've learned through all of this...
Hydrate.
Oh, yes. Let's hydrate. Let's hydrate before I say my monologue. Thank you. One thing I've learned, we all just need to give each other the space to do the thing that we love here. One thing that I appreciate about this craft, and the reason I got so deep into it, is because I was able to find the part of this that really made my heart light up, that got me motivated to pick up my hooks every day. And I'm like, yes, I'm going to do this thing. So I'm going to make the granny squares. Or if you're into the amigurumis, if you're into the lace, if you're into the cables, if you're into the, you know, different fibers or different dye styles, like, there's so many ways to engage with this craft. And as much as I love hearing these hot takes, I do think that there is some
grace,
division that happens,
and give everybody grace.
There's a division that happens that then results in people not wanting to exist in the same space together, saying like, oh, I don't like that. You might not like the project that I'm making, but that don't say nothing about me as a person. So, like, let's not judge people off the types of projects that they make. There's going to be niches that you want to exist in, but everything is not for everyone, and it's not meant to be. I think there is a space for us to all develop our skills, to have an appreciation, even for the things that we don't want to do or make.
Yes.
That's my 2 cents.
I have strong opinions because I knit and crochet. At the end of the day, we all make things out of string. If we can remember that, then we can have grace for everyone that's in this space. Be willing to teach. If it's something that you think that you can help a young person with, don't go at them, you're doing this all wrong. Let me show you the right way.
Go in with like good energy and positive intent,
sweetheart, I saw your feed. It was amazing. I have a little input. I would like to show you what it is that I do, and if they say no, I'm not interested, then you say, okay,
let it
no
go.
problem.
Drop it.
Show the babies,
as
well as the grandparents, as well as yourself, some love and some grace.
Absolutely. I think that's a perfect place to leave it. Thank y'all so much for watching. We cannot wait to read your hot takes down below. The hotter, the better. Let's get good and messy, baby.
Spicy.
Thank y'all so much for watching. Thanks, Mom, for coming. I love you
guys.
See you next time.
Stay crafty, my friends.
That was fun.
It was fun.
Aww.